Welcome, beautiful soul, to another episode of Becoming Undone. We're going to explore a very interesting topic today. One of my favorite topics to explore, actually, despite the word that I'm going to be speaking about that sounds like it has a negative connotation. This is a very exciting topic, and I have so much to say on it. It's taken me quite a while to write this episode, but the words just poured out of me because my personal experience with this topic, it just speaks volumes, and I hope that what you receive today, the transmission that you receive today, really lands for you. So, we're exploring the topic of pain today, and in particular, how to get ourselves out of pain. Today, I want to share with you my top strategies to help you understand pain, and in doing so, reduce the amount that it affects you. All of which I speak about in this episode is based on my personal experience, and trust me, it works. But also don't take my word for it. You can trust that it works because it worked for me and it's worked for many, many people out there. But it's something that you're going to need to try on for size. So just like anything, I always say to my clients, don't believe a word I say. Sometimes I'm in session and some wisdom will just land, universe and God is channeling through me. And I'll say something and it's like, wow, it just lands. But I just say to them, don't believe me. Try it for yourself. Because when you try it for yourself and when you have your own embodiment of that concept, of that idea, then no convincing is required. I'm not here to convince you about anything. I'm just here to share ideas with you, and you can try them on for size and find out if they work for you. So if you're someone who is struggling with physical pain, or you've had trouble with emotional pain in the past, which, let's face it, is 99.9% of people on this planet. Obviously, I don't know that to be true, but that's what it feels like. So many people are struggling with how to deal with their emotions, and they feel overwhelmed. And a lot of people are also struggling with physical pain and other types of illnesses. So if that's you, this episode is going to be really valuable for you to listen to. And if there's someone that you personally know that is dealing with this, pass it on to them as well, in the hopes that it could help them. So something I learned pretty early on in my life was that no matter what background we come from and what color our skin is, what status we hold in society, we're all going to be exposed to pain at some point, physical and emotional. No one is sheltered from heartbreak, injuries, body pains, old age, or experiencing emotions. And no one is sheltered from life's challenges. They're going to come our way, whether we like it or not. But the degree to which pain affects us is largely dependent on the way that we respond to it. Let me say that again. The degree to which pain affects us is largely dependent on the way that we respond to it. This is why it feels like an absolute no-brainer to me to take the time to understand and learn about our relationship to pain. So just like we put in time and energy into our relationships with people, our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to pain is extremely important for us to prioritize and put time into. Because the experience of pain is unavoidable. It's gonna happen. But the way that we respond to pain is totally 100% something that we can alter. And it's just about learning how to do this. But we do need to be able to first put in the time and see the value of doing this. And chances are, if you're listening to this episode, you already feel that way. The way we respond to challenges and the level of awareness we possess in our being determines how much pain and suffering we experience. So if you're someone who has never learned about how to deal with pain and have no capacity for pain, you know how some people say I have a really high pain tolerance? All they're really saying is that in their nervous system, they have capacity to be able to deal with something that their mind is deeming to be uncomfortable. And people who have low pain tolerance just have a very small window of tolerance in their nervous system to be able to deal with pain and sensations of pain. So we need to take the time to understand our biology, how we work, how we respond to pain. Because as I said, pain is going to arise whether we like it or not. So what exactly is pain? I would define pain as the physical sensations that arise in the body, accompanied by a mental story or narrative about ourselves. So if you're looking at physical pain, This is the simple definition. A physical sensation arises in the body. With that, almost immediately or simultaneously, there is a mental narrative that we feel about ourselves and our identity. And if we're looking at emotional pain, it's a similar thing. Every time we feel emotional pain, there is also a physical sensation that is arising in the body, whether we are aware of it or not, and that is accompanied by a story or a narrative about ourselves. Pain isn't actually painful in and of itself. Pain is simply an amalgamation of thoughts and physical sensations. What makes it painful is our automatic impulse to push this energy away when it arises and judge it as wrong or bad. In other words, pain is painful when we resist it, when our mind resists it. Maybe you've heard of the saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. I would have to agree with this sentence completely. Pain is in fact inevitable because it's automatic. It's a learned automatic response that arises in the body and the mind, felt through physical sensations, emotions, and a supporting narrative when something that we perceive as undesirable or unwanted has taken place in our reality. Suffering, on the other hand, arises as a result of our resistance towards the pain. Our resistance towards either the physical sensation, the emotion, or the narrative playing, or all of it, is what causes us to suffer. It's the internal and often subtle ways that we say no to the pain that cause us to suffer. For years, human beings have been suffering. And for as long as humans have been suffering, we've also been looking for a way out of suffering. For me, suffering comes down to our lack of understanding pain and therefore ourselves. Take a moment and think of the last time you experienced something painful and notice what comes up for you. When was the last time that you were in pain? Just notice what arises in your body. And if you're someone who has not done much body work or somatic work, you might say nothing, I feel numb. Or if you're someone who does feel connected to their body, you might say, oh, I'm feeling a bit of tightness here, I'm feeling a bit of tension in my neck. But just notice that immediate response that comes up when you think of something painful. By its very definition, when most people think of the word pain, they feel some sort of a contraction in their body, an unpleasant thought, or the start of an uncomfortable emotion. This is how the body and mind have habitually been programmed to respond. And there's nothing wrong with feeling a contraction, an unpleasant narrative or a story, or an uncomfortable emotion, or an emotion. But it's when we say no to this response and push it away, that's when it truly becomes a problem. It's when we say, I wish this wasn't happening. Why is this here? I don't want to feel this. And we do what we can to avoid that pain by scrolling on social media, overeating, drinking, overworking, and numbing out on other vices. This is what actually makes the pain painful and turns it into suffering. But what if I told you that pain doesn't have to be unpleasant? What if I told you that pain can be seen objectively and can be responded to in a way that actually makes it less painful? What if pain can be seen as a neutral messenger, here to convey an important message to us about the enhancement of our character in this lifetime? What if pain was our catalyst to realizing who we are at the deepest level? If we entertain these ideas for a minute, then all we would need to do is learn the skill and practice of listening to our pain and practice responding to it without resistance. I know, if this is a new idea to you, it may feel daunting and maybe even a bit far-fetched, but it's totally possible, and my own experience and the individuals I've helped along the way are a testament to that. This is the inquiry that I'm inviting you to join me in today. I started intentionally exploring my relationship to pain 8 years ago. Due to the pain I've experienced so far, I've built quite an intimate relationship with it, and I continue to work with pain when it arises. I would consider myself to be quite fortunate to be saying that, because developing a relationship with pain has given me access to a faculty of inbuilt resources that I can call on anytime a challenge or problem arises. And it's enabled me to experience joy like never before. You possess the very same internal resources, and when you have an expert guiding you inwards and showing you how to access these resources, wow, it's a game changer. Pain ceases to feel painful. Can you imagine living the rest of your life not being afraid of pain, not protecting yourself from pain, not feeling like you need to walk around? My most memorable experience of being in pain was derived from an accident I had while I was traveling, where I fell on my butt and injured my coccyx. You know that tiny little bone at the end of the spine that no one really gives importance to on a day-to-day basis? Well, it turns out that part serves a really important function in our body. I was in New York at the time. It was 31st of December, 2014. I remember this night so clearly. I was with one of my really close friends, and we had traveled from New Zealand on our summer break. I was at one of those New Year Eve parties in Manhattan, and I just remember that at that point in my life, I did not have a very good relationship with myself at all. I felt quite disconnected. And that sense of disconnection, it just brought me to a party that was very alcohol-fueled. And what happened next changed my life forever. Before I go into the story, I want to tell you about the definition of chronic pain so that you understand the extent to which I was suffering. By definition, chronic pain represents pain in the body that persists longer than a 12-week period and for which you haven't quite figured out the cause. When this injury took place, I had no idea that it would turn chronic and that it would cause me to suffer for 7 whole years. I returned from New York in a pretty painful and disassociated state. So what happened was, when I was at this party, I basically slipped down the stairs multiple times. It was quite dark. I was wearing these boots that had quite a big heel on them, and I slipped. And as I slipped, I just remember trying to get myself up. It was still quite dark, and as I was trying to get up, I fell again. So falling down the stairs again and again and again on the same spot resulted in a bruising of my coccyx. And boy, bruising is so hard to work with, especially on the coccyx, because x-rays don't really show the bruising. So the doctors themselves were quite blasé about my treatment and what was really going on. I returned from New York in a pretty painful and disassociated state, which makes sense because when we experience an event that we perceive to be unsafe and painful, our body naturally goes into fight, flight, or freeze. And if we can't fight the threat, which in this case was the injury and the fall, I couldn't fight it because it already happened. And I couldn't flight because, again, the injury already took place. So there was no way to escape the pain. This is when I went into freeze as a state of self-preservation. We disassociate from pain to ensure our survival. On an emotional level, this can be perceived as a feeling of helplessness, hopelessness, or numbing out. When we go into freeze and disassociate from the body, it means that we're completely disconnected from the pain, and therefore the solution to the pain. That doesn't mean that we don't experience the pain. We do. It's still there. But we don't experience it in its entirety, so that our resources can be utilized to ensure our survival. It's hard to find a solution for pain if we're not connected or aware of what's really going on. This is why I believe pain turns chronic. The solution to our problems very literally lie within ourselves and not out there. But in order to receive this frequency, we need to be connected and tuned into our bodies. When I went through this pain, I suffered a lot. And that's because I resisted the pain a lot. I approached this pain like most people do. I said no to it. Internally, I saw it as a nuisance, disrupting my life plans, and something that I just didn't give much attention to, in the hopes that it would just go away. It made me feel like such a victim, and highlighted the unloving and unkind things I thought about myself. It highlighted my deepest unresolved wounds and directly shined a light on the parts of myself that I had been avoiding and trying to get away from my whole life. What I didn't know at the time was that this pain was a wake-up call and a call for attention from my soul. The chronic pain I experienced was a big catalyst for awakening and an invitation towards wholeness. I go quite in depth with this in my first podcast episode, so be sure to check that out if you'd like to hear more. I did eventually figure out that this pain was working for me and it was here for my growth, but by that time the pain had already turned chronic. And the very fact that it had turned chronic has actually been one of the most fortunate things that has happened to me. My determination to live a pain-free life drove me towards all sorts of healing modalities and right into the arms of this career. I wouldn't be doing this work if it wasn't for the wisdom that came from working with my body day in, day out for 7 whole years. From the age of 23 to the age of 30, I experienced difficulty sleeping, lying down on my back, walking, standing, and sitting. At different times, different pain was alive. There was hardly any moments where I felt no pain. So as you can imagine, I kind of felt like I had no choice but to get to know this pain and get to know the person experiencing the pain. When you're sitting with yourself and you can't do anything, I tried addressing the pain through Western medicine, but in New Zealand there was no tailbone specialists, only spinal surgeons. So the solution they gave me was to take tramadol and Panadol to manage the pain. This is why I started exploring more unconventional modalities of healing. One of the main tools I tried on for size was working with a holistic coach who specialized in emotional healing. I reached out to her to help me understand my emotional landscape, and really because I wanted to get out of suffering. We explored my relationship to my emotions, my coping mechanisms, how often I resisted my emotions, what emotions I was comfortable feeling, how often I would shut down, and everything in between. This was a super important piece in healing the chronic pain because the physical pain I was experiencing was directly linked to my emotions. Or shall I say, the suppression of my emotions. A concept that was introduced to me for the first time, but instinctively felt quite familiar and made sense on all levels. Within the well-being industry, it's now pretty commonly known that if you have chronic pain or illness or any health issue for that matter, that what you're experiencing is a symptom. The cause of the symptom is one and the same for everything: the suppression of your emotions, nervous system dysregulation, and of course, trauma. When emotions don't have room to pass through you and you unconsciously stop them by pushing them away through distracting or numbing yourself, they accumulate energy within the body and get trapped. This energy needs to go somewhere. So it manifests as things such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, gut issues, migraines, headaches, any other pain and illness that you can think of and name. It arises due to the suppression of emotions. When I became aware of this information, it blew my mind. Somehow what I heard totally resonated because I was working on my relationship to my emotions and building a healthy relationship with myself at the same time. And because of this, I got to experience all of this work working for me in real time. One of the ways that this wonderful practitioner helped me see this connection was by asking me direct questions such as, what does having this pain on your tailbone make you feel? My answer at the time was frustration. Okay, and what else? Trapped, I said. We then uncovered that I'd actually been feeling trapped my whole life. It wasn't a new experience. And having this injury and not being able to do anything normal, like walk or sit or sleep or hike, made me feel helpless. I just didn't even know why I was here. I don't know why I was born if I can't do any of the things that I'm supposed to be doing or that I want to do. And of course, this was an experience. This was a feeling that I'd been feeling my whole life. Another emotion I'd been experiencing my whole life. So basically, this injury or so-called accident brought something that had been there the whole time up to the surface and got me to a point where I had no option but to confront this wound and confront this distortion that is so disconnected and so separate from the divine. I felt helpless and like a total victim to life because of my experience growing up. I had developed a very unhealthy relationship with myself, and if I'm honest, I didn't feel great about being alive. But somehow I was functioning like most people are. I was working, I was hanging out with friends, I was getting up, I was traveling, and I seemed pretty normal on the surface. But the truth was I was disconnected from my body and my reality, and deep down I was unhappy. Think about how many people are still functioning but actually feel quite miserable, and they're just coping, they're just getting on with life. It's crazy to think of the amount of people that are going through this right now. That was my experience for most of my life until this injury took place. This injury was honestly my soul taking care of me, my soul guiding me, and it was a course correction. for my soul. The physical pain that manifested in my body didn't arise solely due to this injury. It simply surfaced because I already felt helpless. It came up in such a glaringly obvious way that I had no choice but to look at myself and dismantle this limitation and this distortion that was born out of the wounding that my identity had experienced growing up. And this is why I see this as the biggest gift that was given to me by life. Experiencing pain and learning how to get out of pain not only helped me to get out of suffering, but it also allowed me to help others get out of suffering. It completely flipped my life and brought me out of the darkness and into the light, something that I've been waiting lifetimes to experience. A big aspect of getting out of pain is learning to work with our emotions and becoming aware of where we are suppressing and resisting how we feel. Most of us are unconsciously suppressing how we feel because we're scared, and that makes sense. Our nervous system cannot handle what we interpret. Hey there, just dropping in with a gentle reminder. You, my friend, are exactly where you're meant to be in this grand tapestry called life. No mix-ups, no coincidences, and absolutely nothing happens by chance. Your soul is always present, embracing you as you boldly navigate this beautiful adventure we call life. Do you feel connected to your soul? In this lifetime, I've been cast as your spiritual guide. My mission? To help you explore the depths of your inner world and unearth the wellspring of genuine fulfillment and joy that lies within. And I have just the roadmap to help you bravely embark on this inner quest. How do you know if you're ready for this? You'll sense it. You'll know it's time when you've exhausted the external search for happiness and are ready to shine a light on your inner world with the same vigor. You'll know. Visit my website to schedule a free consultation. Let's tune into your heart's desires and clear away any obstacles to soul-level fulfillment. I'd be thrilled to meet you. Now, let's dive back into the episode. To be uncomfortable emotions, because at some point, feeling those very emotions was too much for our system. We didn't know how to regulate or process those emotions, and weren't given the appropriate modeling and tools from our caregivers to learn this skill. So what do we do instead? We disconnect from our bodies. It's safer to disconnect from pain and avoid it rather than to allow it. And as mentioned earlier, all of this accumulated energy needs to go somewhere. Once it hits the pinnacle, it presents itself as pain and illness in the mind and body. Resisting our emotions is akin to resisting any energy, because emotions are simply that, energy in motion. And energy needs to move through us in order to maintain a healthy body and mind. Energy is meant to flow. When we're disconnected from our negative emotions, we're disconnected from our aliveness. The only way to ensure we don't stay in disconnection is to do the opposite. It's to connect with ourselves and the physical sensations and emotions we're experiencing, and to change the way we perceive. If you're scared of feeling pain, emotional or physical, I totally get it. This is so normal, and I see you in this. But you cannot keep resisting pain. It's absolutely necessary that each of us learn how to allow the experiences our intelligent body is offering to us in the form of physical sensations and emotions, and allow these to pass through our vessel. It's a skill we must all learn in order to be able to experience deeper levels of joy. This is what we're here for. Feeling good and feeling pain are two sides of the same coin. Without allowing the pain to flow through you, you will not have access to the kind of joy your being longs for. The first step to building this skill is to change our perspective around pain. How do we do this? Well, stop trying to get out of pain, and instead accept that you are in pain and allow the pain to be there to the best of your ability. Work on your resistance towards pain. I know that sounds counterintuitive and could even be quite annoying and frustrating to hear. But things shift when we stop wanting them to shift so badly and change. Because when we want something, it implies that we don't already have it. We're coming from lack. And that feeling of lack like something is missing, like we're not where we want to be, creates more lack. This is because the universe operates like a mirror and is always meeting us without any bias and mirroring back to us who we are being and the vibration we're holding. So if we keep trying to get out of pain, we're simply building more resistance towards it. Whatever we're in resistance to persists and increases. So look at your resistance to pain, both physical and emotional. That's the part that's actually causing suffering. So what is resistance? It's when we push something away because we see it as invalid, bad, or unwanted. And what is the opposite of resistance? It's to embrace something and take it as a part of you, to see the value in something, and in doing so, bring it closer to you. Stop trying to get rid of pain and instead learn to embrace it and see it as a valid part of you. Learn to understand it, get to know it, get familiar with it. This very approach reduces resistance. I hope that you consider this approach to get you started. I've accumulated quite a toolkit over the years, so if what I'm saying resonates with you and you're ready to embrace more of yourself, and in the process of doing so get out of pain, and then get in touch, I'd love to help you in a dedicated way. This kind of work is most effective in a one-on-one setting. One of the ways that resistance shows up is in the form of thoughts and expectations around how your life should be. You may have had certain goals and aspirations for your life, and pain, whether it be emotional or physical, was never part of the plan. If your pain feels like an inconvenience, this is resistance showing up. For example, you may have plans to go out, but you may feel triggered by something, leading to feelings of sadness or disappointment, or you may have planned to go on a trip, only to find that you've sprained your ankle or have a headache. When these things seem like inconveniences, messing with your plans, this is resistance at play. It's your task to look past this conditioning and instead of seeing it as an inconvenience, see it as something valuable that's here to alert you that something you're doing in this moment doesn't feel right to your being and isn't honoring of your individuality. Most of us have no clue how to listen to this and tune into these messages, and so we end up shooting the messenger. The body has a mind of its own, and the reason the body is such an important aspect to get in tune with is because the body is the mind manifested in physical form. What you cannot comprehend or are unaware of on a subconscious level will show up in the body. Again, not to be an inconvenience to you, not to mess with your plans. It's only here to pass through you. It's a visitor with an important message. Welcome it, listen to the message, and let it pass through. Whenever emotional or physical pain arises, I would even go as far as saying that it is good news. Pain arises so that it can leave you. It's not here to stay. It's an opportunity for something that no longer serves you, and for that thing to shift. The way out of pain is by going into it and through it. Now realize that I'm not saying get stuck in it or stay in it. What I'm saying is go through it. For example, if you were going to visit a beautiful forest somewhere because you heard that it had a gorgeous waterfall, you would find the best path to go into this forest. You would map out the route so you could get to the waterfall. You'd spend time in the forest, in the waterfall, because you want to. And when you're done, you'd leave. In the same way, map out the way into the pain you're experiencing. Go into it because it contains a gift. The gift is revealed in the journey we take inwards. And the gift of this is often not what we expect it to be. And only you can access this gift. For me, the gift was of my awakening to my true nature, building a deeper connection with my heart and soul, getting in tune with my body, and understanding this vessel that I have access to in this lifetime. The gift for me was of understanding myself and seeing myself for what I am, rather than who I thought I was. The gift was experiencing fulfillment and satisfaction and changing my life so that it is a reflection of my innermost wants and desires. So take a moment and think about this question. What do I need to get to a place in my life where I'm willing to be with and allow this pain, to hold this pain in tender love and care? When you do this, the level that the pain is affecting you will automatically reduce. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. The second most effective strategy to get out of pain, which is linked to the first, is to surrender to the pain and to the way your reality has manifested. Okay, sure, it didn't work out as you had planned, but can you surrender to this? When I was uncovering the various root causes of the chronic pain I was experiencing, my desperate search brought me to a Teal Swan workshop in Australia. I had the opportunity to experience Teal's work as both a participant and as part of the crew. It was awesome. If you ever have a chance to check out her in-person workshops, I highly recommend them. Very potent. The energy is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. One of the activities she guided us through in the workshops highlighted to me just how much resistance I had towards the pain. I was angry, frustrated, and I just wanted it to end. My friend was working with me at the time, and I remember coming out of the auditorium and completely breaking down in front of him. I expressed my frustration and helplessness to him. At that point, it had been 3 years since I had the injury. I was in so much pain, and things just weren't getting better. After hearing me out, which he's done 1,000 times, bless him, he looked at me with kind eyes and calmly said, "Sanya, I get that you're in pain and it really hurts, but fighting it and going against it won't solve anything. You need to get to a place of acceptance and okayness with the pain where you can say, I don't mind having this pain for the rest of my life, and believing it. That's the level of surrender you're being called into." Oh boy, I just remember feeling so annoyed at the time. What the heck? How dare he say that to me? He doesn't know what it's like to live like this. What he's asking of me is ridiculous. I was appalled at his suggestion because it just felt unfair. How can someone who has never experienced this kind of pain before ask me to get to a place where I don't mind having this pain? Does he not understand how much it hurts? I was terrified of surrendering, as you can hear. The truth is, the word chronic scared me to death because it felt like forever, no solution. And because that's the meaning that the world had assigned to it. Just look at how many people are living with chronic pain because they haven't found a solution for it. The numbers are appalling. I absolutely did not want to feel helpless for the rest of my life. That was where my resistance was. I was in resistance to the way that my reality was showing up in that moment, which was in pain. Having this pain messed with my plans to hike and travel and adventure. Gosh, I couldn't even do the normal things that everyone could easily do, like walk, sit, or lie down. This pain completely messed with my identity and who I wanted to be in this lifetime. Even so, I knew my friend was right. I had to surrender. It felt impossible, but that was the level of surrender required. And surrender I did. Total acceptance and surrender changed the game for me. It played a huge part in helping me get out of both emotional pain and chronic pain. If surrendering to pain feels difficult for you, I get it. But surrendering in this case simply means going with the flow of life. If pain of any kind is manifesting for you in life right now, just go with it and see what happens. Don't fight against it. It's much more tiring to go against the current of the river than it is to flow with it. And I know that it requires a great deal of trust, but the only way you're going to know that you're going to be okay is by letting go. We often hesitate or find it harder to surrender because we think that the plan that we have laid out is better than the plan that God, nature, and the divine has destined for us. So we fight and struggle and we go against the tide of where life wants to take us because we think we know better. I'm chuckling because I literally have an example of this happening in my life right now. But this is simply not true. If we let go, even just a little bit, and accept our situation, and accept how we feel, without trying to fix it, without trying to get out of it, we reduce our resistance towards our pain. The very act of doing this brings us into a different state of consciousness, a state where new solutions and insights can emerge. I want to say this again for your benefit. Listen carefully. When you surrender to the pain and embrace the path laid before you, regardless of how different it is to the one you planned for yourself, you elevate yourself to a different level of consciousness, one where new solutions and insights can emerge to the problems that you're facing. In other words, because you're going with nature rather than against it, your vibration changes and matches you up with a reality where you are in fact pain-free. Because nature is always in the process of correcting itself. So nature wants you to experience wellness and well-being in your body, mind, and soul. When I surrendered to the emotional and physical pain in my body, that's when I started to actually heal. Because I didn't need to heal anymore. I didn't need to fix anything anymore. I didn't see myself as broken anymore. I saw myself as an imperfect child of the divine who was being guided by her soul on a path that I didn't know much about. So, my dear listener, to get out of pain, you must practice surrender. Surrender is a skill, and it's a huge topic in and of itself, so I'll save going further into that for another episode. When you can get to a place in your life where you don't need to get rid of pain because you've surrendered and can see it as another aspect of God or the divine, that's when it lifts. But you have to truly, truly, truly not mind it being there. To do that, you have to get intimate with it and you have to get to know it as a friend. From a purely spiritual perspective, pain helps you to build your spiritual stamina. It acts as the most perfect fertile soil for the transformation of your soul. It's your initiation into realizing your power, and it's a course correction to get you in alignment with your highest path for your soul in this lifetime. I can confidently say that after the tailbone accident. Did it suck? Yes, very much. Did I want to give up every day? Yes, absolutely. Did I have days where I wasn't even sure why I was even alive? 100%. But did it also create such a radical shift in my reality and bring me more into alignment with God? Hell yeah. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. What a wild initiation. Pain is a signal inviting you to listen. It isn't actually personal, believe it or not, because it's not here to harm you. It's just an accumulation of trapped energy that doesn't have room to flow, because our very resistance towards it is what doesn't allow it to flow like water. And because we've built this habit of resisting pain, this is why it accumulates. It doesn't arise because we deserve it or we've been bad in some way. Karma is not personal either. I remember feeling like I was being punished when I was in chronic pain. But of course that wasn't the case. Because as I said, pain isn't personal. It's a helpful messenger. It filters through as being personal because it's perceived through the lens of the body and mind, which are both constructs of the ego or the I. So once again, this is your invitation to surrender to the pain and the path laid out in front of you. Pain is necessary because from the moment we're born, we're influenced by conditioning and societal paradigms which shape us and mold us into who we are. So often, that very experience of molding and shaping occurs through highly unconscious parenting. And so we become a version of ourselves that isn't actually who we truly want to be. It's more aligned with who the world needs us to be. Pain is a messenger and an indication that we are ready to break out of that. What a wonderful opportunity. It's an indication that our human self is ready to look within and experience our essence nature. When pain arises, it means that you are on the verge of a breakthrough. You're about to break through another layer of distortion. Another layer of the veil is being lifted, and you're getting closer to realizing that which a part of you has known all along. And it's kind of the only way, because the signal needs to go out. When it goes out through physical and emotional symptoms, it's hard to ignore. Physical pain can very literally stop you in your tracks and cause you to question your life. It's such a gift. But I also acknowledge that it doesn't always feel like that. And this is where I believe our work lies. This is precisely why I wanted to record this episode. Because when we stop seeing pain as bad, wrong, or invalid, and stop trying to get rid of it, it automatically falls away and passes. Pain arises so it can pass. Emotions arise so they can pass. Our resistance to them stops them in their tracks and amplifies and increases the effects of pain. The mere act of taking the time to understand your pain, which means the physical sensations and the emotions and the mental narrative arising with it, reduces and eradicates this resistance. You start approaching it like a friend rather than an enemy. The truth is, It exists inside of you. So if you see the pain that you're experiencing or the problem you're experiencing as an enemy, it actually means that you see yourself as a problem or an enemy, and you're actually pushing yourself away. I do want to mention, though, that due to conditioning, the habit pattern of the mind operates in such a way that our mind automatically pushes away pain almost instantly when it arises. So in a way, it's not even really your fault. It just happens automatically. We've kind of trained ourselves to do this over lifetimes. And so this happens without our input. But that doesn't mean that it isn't our responsibility to come out of the pain. We're the only ones that can do that. That's very much our task. And it's one that not many individuals will cultivate the courage to face in this life. Since you're here and listening to this episode, I believe you're ready to answer the call. Becoming conscious of our patterns and the way we deal with pain is extremely important. I encourage you to look into how often you're in pain, how you push pain away, and the triggers that create the experience of pain in your being. When we're conscious of the habit pattern of the mind, and can take the time to understand the pain signal and see it as a friend instead of a foe, this pattern starts to lose its power. The ultimate aim is to become a vessel for pain and to not take it personally. Pain is a messenger for this costume you're wearing. It's here to let you know that you may need to make some adjustments to this costume so that you have a better life experience, one that your soul and the divine is ready for you to have. I basically had to get to a place where I felt in my body that if I have this pain for the rest of my life, I'm okay with it. That took so much courage because it meant surrendering myself to God's will. This is how you get out of pain, by diving head first into it, and in doing so, reducing your resistance towards it and towards your emotions and surrendering to the way your life has manifested. And then, by taking the time to understand your nervous system, stress responses, and the experiences that led you to feeling unsafe in your body. To do this effectively, my recommendation would be to hire an expert to help you. It's very effective to work with somebody in a one-on-one capacity to hold you and guide you inwards towards experiencing safety. And the best part is, you see safety being modeled through your relationship with this expert. So then you gain an embodied sense of what it feels like to be safe, grounded, and open in your body. All of which are the very qualities that make you receptive to realizing the solutions that will bring you out of pain and suffering. You'll know when you're ready for this step, because something in you will be saying, yes, finally, this is what I have been searching for. If you're ready for this, I'm ready to help you too. Get in touch via my website and let's explore. So, to sum this up, your pain is your path towards your homecoming. From here, you have two choices. Embrace your pain and allow it to transform your soul, or resist your pain and let it turn into suffering. Chances are, if you're listening to an episode titled, How to Get Out of Pain, you're ready to get out of pain. Who knows? While you're navigating your way into the pain and getting to know it, you might even start enjoying the experience of it. Thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you. Namaste.